Battle rages in front of a stronghold. This is the last line of defense on the side of the Kingdom of Grandies against the invading forces, Endeavor Stronghold. It seems that the Endeavor Stronghold is being put to the test as we see a blast sending people flying and destroying what can be assumed as a castle wall. A weapon slash cuts a soldier in half before he knows what is happening. As this happens, one of the men cries out that the monsters have scaled the walls. The enemy is what seems like giant orcs. One of the captains tries to rally his soldiers by saying that they have to fight with everything they've got. And even though they're on the back foot, he tries to boost their morale by saying that they have to slay every single one of the invading orcs. An orc commander shouts some gibberish to his troops, and their mages start forming a combined warding spell. While this is happening, the others work on a different spell, which begins to release a red energy among the orcish army. The orcs breathe in the energy, some of it gets absorbed in their body, and we see that it gives them some kind of berserker rage. Filian Endeavor, the deputy commander of the stronghold, grits his teeth after seeing this. As he watches the battlefield, he gives up hope as he thinks that it is only a matter of time before their south gate will fall. As the large number of berserk orcs run towards the men, we see the orc chief standing behind them, emanating a menacing red aura which causes his hair to float. The human commander makes an observation about their situation, that the problem they're facing right now cannot be compared to when the orc chief would join the fray. As we get a close-up of the orc chief, we find out that he is an aura user. And if there's one thing we've learned from Manhwas, it's not to fuck with guys that use aura. I am proven right immediately when we see the orc chief's aura forming a much bigger avatar of his own image above him. As a high-ranking human watches the battle with a scope, the orcs have gotten past the walls and are now overrunning the defenses one after the other. At this point, the humans seem to be fodder for them to slow their progress. Someone yells out that they need to protect the castle with their lives as a giant orc foot is lifted and is mercilessly brought down on an armored soldier's face and chest, crushing his armor as well as the man inside. Some aqua-colored energy starts to make the dead twitch, which naturally causes the orcs to be confused about this whole phenomenon. Someone is casting a spell which is causing this effect on the dead. The crushed soldier's arms come to life and grab onto the foot which is actively crushing it. The dead start to rise as the berserk orcs look around at what is happening. The humans are just as surprised as the orcs when they see their former brothers in arms, as well as the orcs they had managed to kill start to stand up, their mouths hanging open as the unnatural energy forces their corpses to move. An undead human soldier, with his broken neck dangling off his torso, swings a sword at a living orc's neck and finds its mark, killing him. Now the orcs have another enemy to deal with, their undead kind, as well as the humans they've slain. Vast confusion ensues in the orc ranks as the undead begin to rise and fight the invading army. It is the work of a powerful necromancer for sure to be able to raise the dead in such a vast area. This is when a huge explosion, right in the middle of the orc army, causes everyone to turn their attention at the source. It looks like the orc chief's aura avatar had literally slashed a path towards a certain green-haired mage. We now finally get to see the cool-ass mage and notice that he is the one who raised the dead. I'm getting a mysterious main character vibes. He says to the orc chief that normal corpses won't be enough to defeat him and commends him for being an aura master. He gives a command and stretches his arm forward. The orbs of dark energy expand, and from them, more undead start pouring out. They must be his special forces or something. Hordes of undead start running towards the orc chief. But he starts to slash away with his avatar, which wastes the ones closest to him, sending some flying. The giant avatar lifts its arm and brings its sword crashing down, cutting through the masses and causing an explosion to occur at the point of impact, which takes out the surrounding undead as well. The berserk orc chief's warrior spirit tingles and he turns his head just in time as a mummified swordsman brings his sword down at the chief. The orc chief's agility is just as impressive as his strength, and he dodges just in the nick of time for the attack to miss. Just as that happens, a juggernaut of an undead dashes toward the chief. The orc chief receives a clawed uppercut from the buff Khajiit as he was trying to deal with the mummified swordsman. The mummified swordsman takes this chance, and both begin to attack the orc chief, who keeps dodging their attacks. The buff Khajiit has had enough, and he fucking punches the air, which causes a destructive energy wave to form, affecting the earth beneath due to its force. It finds purchase in the orc chief's stomach, causing him to skid backwards. The orc stops his skidding as the energy wave starts to dissipate. By now the humans have become bystanders while the green-haired necromancer solos the entire orc army. They could only observe and comment and talk among themselves about how baffling it is that the necromancer isn't just strong with his magicka, he is an excellent swordsman as well. The undead horde wreaks havoc on the orc army. One of the undead giants lets out a battle cry and brings his weapon down with such force that it sends the surrounding orcs flying and cleanly cuts the one orc on which the weapon was brought down on. A dark fairy flies through the flying orcs, casting her dark magic on the helpless floating orcs, which causes their insides to bloat up and mutate until their bodies blow up. We see that the dark fairy and the giant are an undead pair, their two-man team working together to cause waves and waves of orcs to be nothing but pieces of flesh. The humans stand in their places, their bodies not moving. They can do nothing but watch in awe as the battlefield is turned around by a lone necromancer. I bet they feel glad that he is on their side. Against this adversity, the orc chief is smirking. He can talk as well. He tells the necromancer that he hadn't thought about mere corpses forcing him to halt his invasion. The mummified torso is on the ground. It had been bested by the orc chief. The orc chief tells the necromancer that what he's using to attack the orc chief is nothing, and this much cannot defeat him. Splendid, the necromancer comments, which causes the orc chief to turn his head towards him. We see that the orc chief had leveled most of the necromancer's horde, and there's a large space between the horde and the orc chief. The necromancer says that he had finally found a usable body. He is already picturing the orc chief serving him in death. The necromancer, it seems, is going to join the battle himself now as he starts to compound his sword with his magic. He tells the orc chief that he possessed the necessary qualifications to be one of his companions. He prepares his attack by swinging the sword once, and spins his body to create more momentum and finally aim for the orc chief, who catches the blade with his avatar midair. The bony parts of the sword get crushed by the avatar as the orc chief potentially cuts the necromancer's arm and leg. As the necromancer gets hit, the body starts to disintegrate. The orc realizes this and turns around to slash at the necromancer, who was about to attack him from behind. The orc chief finds purchase on something, which causes a massive explosion to occur. A close-up shows that the sword is stopped by bones. A massive wall of bones, in fact, which the necromancer had raised with his magic. The wall of bones dissipates and the two face each other. The necromancer renews his resolve by saying to himself that he must become stronger still. As he talks to himself, bones grow from the ground itself and start to wrap around his legs. As the ribcage-like bone formation reaches his stomach, his thoughts continue. He thinks to himself how the need to be stronger arises due to his will to survive, and to be able to keep safe those who are close to him. The bone armor fixes itself in place, and his undead horde watches as their master dons his bone armor. The wind clears between the orc chief and the necromancer. This clash is going to be legendary. The orc chief has the biggest smile on his face as he challenges the necromancer to come at him by calling him the warrior, who wishes to change the world and to entertain him in battle one last time. His last conviction to be stronger is for the sake of his own identity as Andreas Cromwell. We'll call him Andy. Andy the necromancer dashes at the orc chief. The fast-paced and destructive clashes that happen next are a sight to see, not just for the humans, but also for the undead horde. Both of them are giving it their all, as we can see from the intensity in Andy's eyes. He slashes his sword at the orc chief and it gets blocked. What seems to be like the final clash is going to be in midair, with Andy's bone armor falling apart, and the orc chief giving it his best as well. This is Roblin Academy, the Empire's most prestigious, nurturing academy where those deemed promising and worthy come to learn. We're taken to a secret room where the same purple orb like before in the fight with the orc chief is glowing. We hear a voice calling on Andy, and we see that Andy is here learning from this teacher. He asks him where a certain thing is kept. We find that they're present in their lab where they learn and experiment in the necromantic arts. Andy scratches the back of his head and apologizes. He had forgotten where he kept the thing he was looking for. His teacher is disappointed in him and tells him off by saying that it's not impressive that he can't remember the location of the body he worked on last week, as he walks around searching for the subject himself. These two are researchers of the forbidden black magic, necromancy. Naturally, this type of magic is outlawed by the Empire, and if someone were to find out, both of them would be executed on the spot. As we see Andy pouring from a bottle of blood, the explanation continues to tell us that since necromancy is outlawed, they have to conduct their experiments in secret. The magic circle has been created by the blood in that bottle, and Andy's teacher tells him to back off so he can begin whatever they're going to do. His teacher begins casting the spell while holding a decomposing skull by its hair while Andy watches on. The magic energy gets absorbed in the corpse and begins to make it rise. Apparently what they were trying to do wasn't successful, as his teacher curses and judges that it is another failure. As the corpse turns to dust, the teacher makes his notes and tells Andy to clean up and head up. They are done for today. While Andy watches on, he thinks to himself that he hasn't learned anything today either. The teacher has exited his secret lab and Andy is left to clean it up. He thinks to himself how dangerous it is that he is doing something like this even though he is not getting much out of it. We see some black magic books lined on the shelves in the secret lab. He now speaks out loud. He says that he can't exactly quit this. He places a book back in its place and continues talking to himself. He continues his thought that the reason he can't quit doing this is because this is the only place where he can read books about black magic. After cleaning up, Andy returns to his teacher's library and apologizes for taking this long. The teacher is seen sitting at his large desk reading something. He continues to criticize his apprentice by saying that taking half a day to clean up the lab is too long, and if this continues, it would take too long before he would be able to do the whole job himself. Andy in response doesn't say anything. He thinks to himself that the reason he'll take long to do the whole job is because he is never taught anything by his teacher, and he has to learn everything by himself. The teacher puts away what he was reading and continues on to say that he gave him such a simple job and Andy is already this nervous. With a gaze that only a grumpy teacher can give, he tells Andy that another failure will not be accepted. Andy pauses before responding and tells his teacher that he will do his best. The teacher gets up from his chair and tells Andy that he is unsure whether to trust him or not, but he is going to give him another chance. He tells him to go to Manhwa's national graveyard and to bring him another body. We find out that the gray-haired man isn't just his teacher, but his adopted father who took him in despite Andy being an orphan. Which means that he has to constantly prove his worth to his adopted father, otherwise he knows exactly what will happen to him. Andy has heard this a lot of times before since his expression is the same. He knows that if his father doesn't see any use for him, he will just turn him into another body to experiment on. His father tells him that this job should be done well, and dismisses him. This is where Andy bows and excuses himself. He exits the office, thinking how he wasn't even given traveling expenses. His father treats him like a slave it seems. We see that as he exited, the people around seem to be looking at him. Andy halts and assesses the situation. People are giving him condescending looks. Some are curious, some are surprised, and some are just watching as they walk by. Andy has had enough of this and rushes past them yelling that he is not some spectacle to be looked at. It seems that everyone around him knows him as the untalented third-year student. Our Andy is not doing well in school. Life hasn't been kind to our Andy. He's an orphan from a fallen family. He's the lowest kind of man who curries favor from the strong and slams the weak. Not only that, but he is also the worst rated in his school. He's the type of character that no one would want to play. But even though he doesn't want it, he has to keep living as Andreas. We're then hit with a twist when we find out that Andreas is actually a character being played in the world of Great Sin, and he's played by our actual main character, who goes by the name of Makoto Kaneshiro. He's a former member of the Special Forces who, upon returning, couldn't quite adapt to the civilian life. The only thing that managed to support his heart was the game called Great Sin. So, he clung to that and completely immersed himself in the game. He managed to finish the game in 12 weeks, which is a lot of runtime for a game if you ask me. Then again, I still haven't finished Skyrim and I play it every day. When he finished the game, someone called him, and that person seemed to know all his information and his gaming habits. Thinking he's been hacked somehow, he tried to turn off his computer quickly. Next thing Makoto knows, he awakes as Andreas Cromwell about 6 months before the main story would begin. Andreas is a character who is always followed by the shadow of death. That's because all the main characters go through the same event in the game. You see, Charon's true identity gets discovered in the game, and then they kill him alongside Andreas. What Makoto needs to do is that he needs to get away from Charon before the main story begins. And he can do that by getting involved with the main characters. So, Andy is now outside the academy and asks himself if he can really clear this. While lazing around on a bench, he's thinking to himself how he needs to become stronger before the main story can begin. He's now thinking about the game mechanics, which is that a player can get 2 special traits after 13 weeks of gameplay. Andy gets up and starts walking, continuing his train of thought. One of the traits is generated randomly, and the other he got was something called dual core trait. It makes one be able to use magic as well as the sword, which sounds pretty neat, but he knows he would need to focus equally on developing both skills, or his power won't reach its potential. Andy is now walking about, thinking how he has a choice for his third trait. He has to choose the trait which synergizes best with his necromancy. He clenches his fist in determination, and opens the characteristics screen. The screen appears in front of him and we can see that the choices are a lot. He says some names out loud, just as a means of being immersed in what he's doing. He strokes his chin in thought, and decides to check out the rest of the traits before choosing on one. The solution could very well be right there in that list. Finally, he finds something that catches his eye. It's a trait called evolution. Evolution is the concept which states that a creature can change its form to adapt to its surroundings. It's a trait that Andy hasn't seen in this game until now. It seems to fit into his needs perfectly, because what he needed was something that would allow him to outgrow the academy walls. In short, something evolutionary. He chooses the evolution trait without giving it further thought. The screen shows him the dialog box for his selection, and disappears. As soon as the screen disappears, his mind gets filled with all the possibilities for his future in regards to his power. He gets goosebumps as the images of his possible undead horde play through his mind. Finally, we're given a teaser for a fucking dragon wrapped in fire at the end of his mind's presentation, with the final slide being Andreas Cromwell as the undead king. This building is called Maple Leaf Dormitory. This is where Andy stays and it is a free facility from the academy. Andy has just woken up and the first thought that crosses his mind is the backstory and critical analysis of his character. We find out that in-game he is a minor villain with not much going on for him. Now that Andy sees it firsthand, he really sees why exactly he was a minor villain. Andy can barely use a single elemental magic. His only asset is necromancy, which is what led him to choose evolution as his trait of choice. He gets ready for the day and states that he will be stopping by the underground lab before heading out for the graveyard. He picks his cloak and heads out. He is determined to be as strong as possible and as fast as possible, not only for the event that would trigger the main story, but for his own survival as well. Because Charon isn't the only character that can kill him, there are countless others too. Andy is back at the academy now and has headed into the underground lab where he is going through the names of the books on black magic and checking their contents. Pretty lame names if you ask me, and our boy Andy thinks the same. Andy glances back to someone sitting in a cage behind him, thinking that there's more immediate danger than getting caught with those books. We see that it is a woman with blood-red hair. Andy notes that she is clearly a vampire. The vampires in this game are beings that can use powerful magic and the sunlight doesn't affect them. Most importantly, they don't sparkle. Obviously, the vampire they now have in captivity isn't the kind of creature that Charon can easily get his hands on. Andy begins to place a book in its place, thinking about her stats, when the woman calls out to him. Like a sly wild animal, she reaches and holds the wooden cage with one hand, asking Andy if he's going to let her out. Andy is now on a train to the graveyard while thinking about this encounter he had back at the lab. With his hand on his cheek, he thinks that it was indeed a tempting idea. We then see the rest of this conversation. The vampire tells Andy that if he lets her out, she is going to kill Charon. She further asks him if Andy is afraid that Charon might kill him someday. Andy looks at her for a moment, thinking about his next move. He is impressed by how easily she was able to deduce that he was being cautious with Charon. He then notes that his recent actions haven't been like that of Andrea's from the game either. We see that Andy has something in his hands for when the vampire would act up. Never hurts to be careful. Andy tells her that there is no guarantee that she won't kill him if he does decide to release her, upon which she swears that she won't. Andy wonders if a higher being like her would actually keep her promise to a mere human. And by the way, her facial expression isn't helping her argument at all. Andy is doing everything but believing her, since his expression is ice cold. He then tells her that he will think about it. He has to take into consideration his situation as well. But the vampire gets angry at this and demands Andy to release her. Now we're back to the present and Andy makes a note of getting a book about vampire handling and to research about them. Andy reaches the graveyard and is seen dragging a large suitcase to its gate, panting and complaining how his weak physical body is truly that of a puny mage. Huffing and puffing, he finally reaches the graveyard's gate and says that he has to make do with this type of physical strength for now. The graveyard is a hot spot for black mages to get their corpses from. Andy identifies himself at the gate by saying that he has come from the house of someone called Jenny, and that he's her third grandson. The gate guard asks if he brought flowers, upon which he responds that he has brought 13 azure sky irises. As Andy thanks his brain for remembering this weird password, the gate guards lets him inside. Andy drags his large suitcase to the Undertaker, who is complaining about his old age. I gotta say it, the Undertaker looks like an old Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. He tells Andy that he has come at a nice time. He shows him a fresh corpse of a knight as promised. Then, as if he was a merchant, he says take it or leave it. Of course, Andy buys it. He's given the corpse as is, and we see him struggling to drag the big man towards his suitcase. He finally manages to get the corpse into the suitcase and says that he should get going before it gets too late. But then, from the corner of his eyes, he notices a certain grave. The grave is giving off an ominous aura, and Andy is almost certain that he has seen this name somewhere before. Then it suddenly hits him. He recognizes the aura, as it belongs to the master known as Nicol Lifil. You see, Nicol Lifil was someone who spent decades training in isolation to follow the path of the sword. With determination, he kept swinging his sword without fatigue, without rest. But even though he dedicated his whole life to the sword and managed to become an aura master, the time took its toll on him. And at that moment, he collapsed, dying of old age. This was supposed to be one of the Easter eggs in the game. And he still wonders why the developers added this bit in. Good thing is that while this information is well known to the gaming community, no one in this world knows that Nicol managed to become an aura master at the end. Which means, as a bona fide necromancer, Andy wonders what might happen if he were to make a death knight out of his body. And while the image in his mind is pretty tempting, even Charon isn't able to raise a high-ranking undead. Andy is standing there as the Undertaker works the graves. He thinks to himself that things would be much different when he finally evolves. He takes a step towards the Undertaker. After all, Andy needs to find a body with good latent abilities. He calls onto the Undertaker, who asks him if he wants another body, because he won't be able to provide him any more. Shaggy tells him that he needs Charon's permission to acquire additional bodies, because otherwise, his own job and life would be in danger. Andy thinks for a moment, before taking a certain item off his finger and offering it to the Undertaker. His question is simple. What if I trade this ring for a body? I have a feeling that ring is bound to be something really valuable, and the Undertaker might not be refused the offer. But in any case, I'm excited to see if our boy will actually be able to raise a high-ranking undead. And more importantly, how will he manage to run away from Charon? Andy had come to the National Graveyard to acquire a corpse to experiment on and had thought about getting another for his personal usage, for which he offered his family ring to Shaggy the Undertaker. We start off with a surprised Shaggy, checking out the ring and noticing that it has a Count's crest on it, and that he can make a good fortune by selling it. He cannot believe that Andy is actually offering up this ring. In order to further sell Shaggy on this idea, Andy says that he has nothing but this old ring, and results matter more to him since he is a mage. He grabs onto Shaggy's hand and forces the ring on his palm while saying that he will make sure this corpse remains hidden from Charon, so he has to take that ring. Shaggy the Undertaker reluctantly gives in and Andy is seen smirking. He is thinking how irresistible these kinds of rings are, even if they belong to a fallen house. After Shaggy agrees, Andy aggressively thanks him and tells him to dig up Nickel's grave. Nickel is dug up and Andy opens the casket to make sure he got the right body. Andy closes the casket and prepares to take it back, while thinking about how the future he saw yesterday after choosing the evolution trait is starting. With determination, he tells himself that he will start his training as a necromancer as soon as he gets back. Andy has gotten back now and presented the knight's body to Charon. He comments that the body looks usable and that Andy needs to take care of the reagents while he is gone. Charon is now gone, and had told Andy that he would have to take care of the aftermath of the experiment as well. Right now, Andy is just annoyed at how little rest he gets. Andy works to prepare the body while thinking how he does chores better when he's annoyed. Perhaps his body instinctively remembers to do this stuff. He wipes his forehead and says to himself that he needs to quickly finish this up so he can start working on his own study. While cleaning up the lab, he thinks about whether he is able to use Nickel's body at his current level. He knows that his current level can only allow him to work with a skeleton at best. Andy is now done with his chores and continues to think how he can best make use of the body he acquired. He thinks about using his evolution trait, but is cautious since he has never used it before. He doesn't have any money either, so it's not like he can just get another body. He'll have to be smart and careful with it. That's when a chain is pulled taut. It's the vampire from before who calls out to him, asking him how long he is going to make her wait. He turns and looks back at her, questioning why she is awake at this hour. The vampire doesn't answer his question and says that she has agreed not to kill him and he should let her out. She then taunts him by saying that he can't work as Charon's assistant forever. Andy walks up to the cage to get a closer look at the vampire. He was waiting for this exact encounter to happen. He was waiting on her to talk to him. The vampire speaks again when he's closer. She asks him if he has made up his mind yet. Andy had researched on vampires before coming here, and his question about how someone like Charon even managed to capture the vampire is answered during that particular read. The vampire woman asks him why he's just staring at her in silence. She begins to turn around to head back, while asking him if he is still in doubt about her promise. She begins to head back to the back of the cage as she tells him that if he doesn't hurry up, she might just kill him after all, even if he agrees to release her. However, the vampire stops in her tracks when she hears Andy's response. He tells her that he will let her out. Naturally, she turns around in surprise, as Andy further says that he cannot stand licking Charon's ass anymore. The vampire woman is overjoyed and offers up her shackled hands, telling him to release her quickly. But her eyes widen in surprise after what Andy adds. He tells her that she must swear on her family's name that she will not kill him. Her arms drop, and Andy thinks about how her reaction has proven that the information he came across during his research into the vampires was right. He had read that when a vampire swears on their family's name, they are prohibited from breaking that promise. Even so, Andy's eyes widened at her positive response. Begrudgingly, the woman swears on Lucifer's name, of all people. I have a feeling she is going to be someone important in this story. Just when she does, a dialogue window opens in front of Andy, while he was busy thinking how easy it was for him to make her swear on her family's name. The dialogue window tells him that he has fulfilled the conditions required to use his evolution trait, and that an evolvable specimen has been detected. The name of the vampire is Angela Lucifer, and her probability of evolution is 55%. A comical scene happens when we see from Angela's perspective. She is confused as to why Andy is swiping and moving his finger mid-air. It seems that the dialogue windows and notifications cannot be seen by people other than Andy. We now see a dialogue window telling Andy the details of his evolution trait, and if you would like to evolve Angela now, it is possible that genetic divergence can occur. Andy also finds out that he can cast the evolution trait on any non-hostile creature or person. Andy strokes his chin while thinking how this is his chance to test this ability out before he can use it on Nickel. He then looks at her and thinks how this action's negative results would not be a problem for him. The vampire yells out if he had tricked her, as Andy proceeds to press yes on the dialogue window. Just when he does, something starts to happen to Angela, which causes her eyes to widen. She drops to her knees while screaming out in agony. Andy is all kinds of surprised at this reaction, but he is just here to test his ability out. From her position, she grabs onto a bar of her cage as her mouth foams, veins pop out, and her eyes leak. In a wild tone, she begins to ask what he did to her before another hit of aggressive evolution takes effect. She ends up falling on her back and passing out as Andy wonders what might be happening to her. After all, it's his first time seeing or using this ability. He tries to reach out to her, but the vampire is passed out cold. Andy then clicks his tongue in annoyance because he now cannot know what exactly happened to her. He gets to work on his own summon, since he has now found out that he can use evolution on other creatures, which means that he can certainly use it on his own summons as well. He prepares to summon Nickel from the dead with his current skill, because he figures that he can just evolve him later when he's able to. Andy puts the final ingredient for the ritual and casts the summoning spell. Magical runes appear at the area between his palms as a notification pops up, telling him about the effects that are being used right now. Andy feels himself being pushed to his limits when the mana usage starts to drain him. It seems he has not cast a single necromancy spell yet, and gets surprised when the mana drain starts to take its toll on his body. But our boy manages to pull through, as Nickel's skin and flesh begin to deteriorate until nothing but his bones are left. The skeleton rises from the floor in front of Andy, who fell down out of exhaustion. And then another notification pops up, telling him what had happened. You see, this skeleton's rarity is legendary, and simply summoning him has increased our boy's conjuration skill from 1 to 3. He reads the notification, and the work he managed to do, which causes half his mouth to curl up into a smile. Yet another notification tells Andy about the condition of the skeleton, and some of its passive traits. The skeleton is a legendary summon, and is already at tier 2 in its power as a summoned creature. As it looks at itself and creaks its bones, we see that the skeleton has some sense of self-awareness. One of the proficiencies it has is mastery of his skill, which is the highest tier for proficiencies of a skill in the game. Mastery is the only proficiency that can be attained through effort. Andy talks to it, noting how Nickel was a real swordmaster during his life. The skeleton looks at him and begins to move its fingers in the air to write letters to communicate. It tells Andy that he is now going to be under his care. When Andy manages to read it out loud, the skeleton gives him the OK sign in acknowledgement that he got the message right. It causes Andy to smirk as he tells the skeleton that this statement goes both ways. It is now the next day, and Andy is sitting at his desk, thinking about his progression going forward. After all, he still has a year before Charon is supposed to die. He goes through his own stats while continuing his train of thought. If he wants to survive, he has a lot of work ahead of him. He checks a stat window and realizes that even if he leaves his summoned skeleton alone, his proficiency would rise passively. Andy gets up from his chair and decides to let Nickel out of the storage in his inventory. He commands the skeleton to come, and out he comes from a magic portal. Now, Andy needs to dress it up to hide its identity, as its discovery by other people would cause problems for the summoner. It takes them some time, but Andy manages to dress up the skeleton in a manner that would make it look normal. The dude looks so good that Andy proudly gives himself props for his work as he looks it over. And then, the skeleton raises its arms and brings them down hard, as if swinging a sword. Andy watches on while saying that the Easter egg description was true. Nickel had died while training to hone himself, and even in death he could not stop training. Our boy smirks when he realizes the opportunity that has presented itself to him. He clenches his fist in excitement when thinking that he has found a way to work on his battle mage class. He calls it a shitty class, but if he's smart with it, he will know just how cool this class actually is. Anyway, he finally speaks and gets Nickel's attention. He decides to cash in on the opportunity and asks Nickel to teach him swordsmanship. And thus, his training begins. His master being none other than Nickel Liefeld, someone who spent his entire life becoming an aura master. It is obvious that Andy's body is not made for physical work, as he notices that when he moves his body, it creaks like crazy. He thanks his mentors in his previous life, who taught him how to keep up despite a weak body. And then, he wonders how crazy it is to have an actual aura master as your teacher. If Andy learns as he is supposed to, in the future he will be able to use aura as well as mana, since he has the dual core trait which makes him a true battle mage. He knows that it will be hard to grow at the earlier stages, since he will be leveling 2 totally different types of skills. But if he manages to get past the initial stages, he has the potential to be stronger than anyone. Just like the founder of the Empire, Emperor Edmund. Nickel notices that his student is lost in some wild fantasies, so he brings him out of his thoughts by pinching hard at his arm. Andy asks him why he did that, and the skeleton writes the word focus in the air while giving him the signature scowl of a strict master. It comes to him as a joke, but our boy is forced to wonder how the skeleton has such a strong grip, despite not having any muscles. Andy, or rather, Makoto, was a member of Special Forces, so his mind is already trained for physical exertion. So, while Andy may originally be a gutless character, Makoto has a lot to teach him. Now, our boy has trained for the whole day, and come evening, he is seen at his desk with a helping of tea. He skipped the classes today, and he's thinking how much his passive stats have increased after summoning Nickel. When he opens up the stats window to check, there are sounds of wind being pushed in the background. We see that his skill has leveled up only 2 points in 5 hours. It's not much, but then again, usually time is a lot faster in normal RPGs. We see that normally, it would take a person 200 hours to reach from basic to beginner necromancy. And Andy tells us that it would become even harder to level up as he progresses through different levels of necromancy. It then occurs to Andy that Sharon has not called on him in a while. In the meantime, the sounds of the wooden stick being swung can be heard louder than ever. The vampire is still passed out after he used evolution on her, so it's probable that Andy has not found out what he did to her. While Andy thinks about how it's taking a lot of time for the evolution to be completed, the wooden stick sounds continue in the background. They finally get Andy's attention, and he looks at what Nickel is doing. Turns out, he is continuing his training in the downtime that they have. Andy wipes his forehead with a cloth while saying that he knows very well that Nickel is an undead, so he would not get tired. But he still commends him for his devotion to his training. That brings him to his own condition of getting tired. If he had potions, he could also reach Nickel's level of physical exertion by just healing and recovering from his tiredness. Potentially, he could repeat this loop forever. You see, there are two types of healing potions in this game. One is a normal healing potion that heals internal injuries and fatigue, and the other is a regeneration potion which helps external wounds, while also increasing your rate of recovery. But these potions are expensive, and a poor man like Andy cannot even think about affording them. He leans forward in his chair while thinking how crafting potions is different from when he was a player. He knows the ingredients, but not the exact rations in which to combine them. He then gets up from his chair while grabbing his cloak, thinking how it would be beneficial for him to attend some classes to learn about the ratios and such other intricacies. Soon, Andy makes his way to the academy and opens up the door to alchemy class. The students in the class see him and begin talking among themselves about why he must be here, and some of them commenting that he's probably here to pick up girls. Looks like our Andy has a bad reputation in the academy. They continue talking out loud as Andy makes his way to a seat. They're not even attempting to lower their voices. Andy gives them a glare, while thinking that he has to endure this for now since he is not here to make a scene and stand out. He looks around and finds a certain girl minding her own business in the back, and she looks rather bored. Probably someone in the same boat as Andy. Pretty soon, the teacher arrives and silences the class before announcing that the lecture is about to begin. This is Professor Professor Vauban's intermediary medicinal herbalism class. Listening to his lecture, Andy thinks about how the events have not strayed from the game so far. Andy, or rather Makoto, is a veteran at this game and he knows all there is to know about it. He's very well aware of potion effects and their usage. In layman's terms, potions OP. While he was wishing for Vauban, to move on to the mixing raids, his prayers get answered when the professor tells the class that he will be talking about the method to make a physical reinforcement potion next. He points to the board with his pointer stick. He begins the lecture by reminding the class about the basic ingredients for a physical reinforcement potion, which are mohaine leaves and 3 other ingredients. This gets Andy's attention because it doesn't match with the knowledge that he possesses about the game. He wonders why he is teaching about a potion with so many side effects at an intermediary class. Andy stands up and asks for permission to ask a question, which is granted to him by Vauban. He names a few ingredients and asks why the professor isn't adding them to the potion. The professor seems taken by surprise by this question, and his inquiry also gets the attention of the bored girl from before. Andy has the attention of the whole class as the professor asks why he wants to add those ingredients in the mixture. The way he adjusts his glasses, I get a feeling that our boy asked something stupid. The professor then begins to resume his lecture by saying that if he wants to add those specific ingredients, he should just make a soup. Of course, his sarcastic comment makes the whole class laugh at our hero. But Andy knows that what he said is true, so he asks himself why he is getting these types of reactions. In the end, he concludes that maybe this recipe hasn't been discovered by the people. The class ends and the students are seen walking out of the lecture hall, talking among themselves. Andy, however, is disappointed because even though he attended an intermediary class, his knowledge of the game is better. He wonders why he is wasting his time attending classes when he can just practice and study alone. Andy adjusts his bag and continues walking, while the girl from before looks at him from behind. This is the research department of the academy, and Andy is here experimenting with potions on his own. We see that a window notification pops up, telling him that the potion he was brewing has failed. It's not his first try either. He puts his hand in his hair in frustration as black smoke comes out from the failed potion. He leans back in his chair wondering how he knows the ingredients, but he doesn't have a reliable way to make the potions. The ingredients are not cheap either, which means he might go broke soon. His mind wonders how easy it would be if someone were to help him, but he dismisses the thought when he considers Andrea's position in the academy. Just then, as if by fate, the door to the room creaks open and the girl from before peeks in with a cat-like face. She opens the door entirely and enters, saying that she had expected Senior Andreas to be here. Andy tilts his head further to look who it is, and is surprised when he sees her. He begins to think, why would a playable character from the game be here? Turns out, the girl's name is Lucia Everlast. She is a playable character in the game and she is a potion brewing genius. Another point to note is that she should not be close to Andrea's, so Andy wonders why would she be here talking to him. She teases him by stating that it looks like he has been failing a lot. Andy wants nothing to do with her and thinks that if he leaves her be, she might leave. But instead, the girl approaches him and asks what he is experimenting on, upon which our grumpy hero replies that it is a secret, and he won't be telling her anything. The cat girl has no intention of leaving though, and Andy was irritated at how his lecture attendance was useless and he got nothing out of it, and still his problems keep increasing. In his annoyance, he ignores Lucia to continue his experiments. The girl lets out a sigh and comments that Andy is really as bitter as everyone says. She knows better though. She says she knew someone like Andrea's would not be the one to propose something first. She places a hand on the table to get his attention, and leans on it to call out to him. She then proposes a really strange idea of trying to study together, and asks our hero what he thinks about it. There is no immediate reason for Andy to refuse this offer, so he decides to entertain her for a bit. He asks her what does she want from him. The girl's cat-like expression returns, and she asks why he thinks it's weird for her to want a research partner. Of course, the ever-suspicious Andy asks her if she would gain anything out of this. With a smile, she tells him that she wants nothing but gratitude from him. She then explains that she thinks he might have some kind of talent, and she's sure that he could create amazing things with proper resources. She tells him that she looks forward to creating medicines that do not exist yet in this world. This reminds Makoto about Lucia's background story. The reason she is such an adept at potion making isn't because she is a natural genius or has a skill for it. It's because she has a grave disease that, if not cured, would eventually kill her. Even the best doctors in the continent couldn't help her with her disease, so the girl took up the task herself and devoted herself to the art of potion making. In actuality, her disease is something that is given to her by the system itself. Someone who is new to the game would not be able to find the cure for her, but for a veteran like Makoto, it's easy since he has the fourth dimension knowledge. But the problem remains, which is the fact that he doesn't know the exact ratio of the needed ingredients. While it is advantageous for him to meet someone like her, Andy cannot afford to have his real identity be revealed. He concludes that she is here to meet with him because she had heard him make that weird suggestion in class. Andy is careful though. He thinks to himself that if he carelessly gets mixed up with her, it's highly possible that he can die. So he brushes her off by saying that he is not interested, basically telling her to get the fuck out. But instead of leaving, the girl names a mushroom, which hits Andy like a shock. Lucia leans in with her cat-like face and tells Andy that he didn't suggest this ingredient in class. But for the potion he suggested, he would need this ingredient as well. Andy is still processing this while thinking why she has the knowledge of the material that only a player would know. She points to his boiler and says that he needs to add that mushroom in there, and he should be able to make the potion he wants. She tries to sell her proposal once again by saying that she intuitively knew this, and if he wants, she can help him out even more. But Andy has no intention of taking any chances with this life, even in the face of such an attractive proposal, so he tells her that she is only saying this because she is rich, and if she's done with what she came here to do, she should leave. Lucia then decides to give up for now as she heads for the door. She exits the research lab by saying that she will give him time to think about it, and she is pretty sure that he will change his mind soon. The door closes, and Andy says out loud that there's nothing for him to think about it. Will it actually go how Andy thinks, or will Lucia's words come true and he will end up needing her help soon? Are there other playable characters in the game that will come to his aid? Or will some of them end up becoming his enemies? And how much longer will it take for our boy to level up enough so he can escape Charon? Andy has now returned from the research facility and is now training with Nickel. As he swings his stick, he is wondering about the offer Lucia had floated his way. He worries about the risks that might come with associating with her. He sighs out loud while thinking his main problem with finding the ratios for the potion himself is going to be money, because the ingredients are very expensive. He gets distracted from his training and says that he needs to find a way to make money first. He swings again, thinking about any good ideas that might come to his mind. As he does, a loud whoosh sound causes him to look at Nickel. He keeps swinging loudly as Andy notes how Nickel always knows when he is not focusing. He starts to pay attention to his training and says to himself that he will think about this carefully after training. There has to be a viable way for him to make money. He has come out after Nickel is done with him for the day. This is when Andy remembers that his sister had sent him a letter telling him to come visit as she misses him. He thinks of begging her for money, but gets frustrated at himself when he remembers that the original Andreas did the same. For now, he just decides to go with this plan, but says to himself that this is not the way to make money, no matter how much of a scumbag one might be. He swears to himself that this is going to be the last time. As he walks the campus grounds, he gets spotted by a girl who seems to recognize him like everyone else. It seems this girl cares about him a little when she notices that he is carrying a book and wonders if Andreas finally has the determination to do something. We see just how much she cares about him when she says out loud that even if he had changed, There is no way to fix his shitty personality. Our Andy really doesn't have a good repo. Andy has noticed her as well, with all that has been going on. This particular girl had skipped his mind. Her name is Diane Alvin, a genius magician and a lady from the Alvin family. And she is yet another character that can easily kill Andy. Andy remembers how Diane is actually his character's childhood friend, but they eventually grew apart when his family's status started to decline. According to the lore, Andreas had done some pretty bad things since then, and Andy doesn't rule out the possibility that she might just kill him for talking to her. If he dies by Lucia's hand, or by Diane's hand, no one would think twice about his death. As he remembers the bond he used to share with Diane, he realizes that asking his younger sister for money really is the best option right now. Andy has now come to the capital to see his sister. He goes into a fancy-looking building and meets with his sister, who is very excited to see him. She asks him why he didn't reply to any of her letters and that she had missed him so much. Andy apologizes for making her work, even though she is supposed to be a count's daughter. This is Amy Cromwell, Andrea's younger sister. She tells him that it is not his fault that she has to work, and that she finds it very unlike her brother to even worry about it. Makoto makes an embarrassed face while holding the refreshment he has provided, and Amy guesses what he might need from her. But she decides to tease him anyway by asking him why he is making such a face. Then she slides an envelope across the table, saying that she knew he might need some money, so she prepared some in advance. As Andy reaches out to take the envelope, Amy tells him not to spend it carelessly, at which Andy thanks his sister and tells her that he will pay it back when he is able. Since he had brought out his left hand to take the envelope, his sister notices something and asks him where his ring might be. And well, we all know what he did with the ring. Andy lies by saying that he took it off so he wouldn't lose it, and his sister asks if he's taking good care of it. While Andy is processing what to say to her, it hits Amy and she asks him if he sold it. She begins to tremble at the thought, as she says to him he should never have done that, no matter what. At this point, Andy just gives up and lowers his head to apologize. That makes Amy immediately stand up by slamming her hands onto the table. She tells him to get the fuck out and she does not want to see him ever again. In her rage, she leaves the table, telling him not to come back here anymore, and that the money she lent him doesn't need to be paid back. Andy is left calling out to her, telling her that he will get the ring back. But she doesn't listen and leaves anyway. Andy is kicked out. He wonders if the ring was really that important to her. He had never seen Amy so angry before. Now that he's alone, he gets a terrible feeling in his stomach. He looks at his left hand, and he knows very well what this feeling is. He has to get back that ring as soon as possible. He has been through this kind of feeling before as well, when he was a soldier as Makoto. There is no point in living if you're just existing. He did not find happiness when he was the lone survivor. He will not find happiness here either if he lets his sister be estranged from him. The least he can do is not repeat what happened to him in his other life. And so, with determination to get stronger and better, he decides to accept Lucia's offer. Now, it's already been a week since Andy and Lucia started to work together. Our boy Andy tells her to get off her ass and run a little. She has been staying in her room like a neat. At which Lucia replies that only idiots do those things. Andy managed to drag her out of the room, but instead of running, she decides to go back to sleep on a bench. Andy has been pushing himself to train and learn potion making. It has been tiring since Lucia does nothing but lays around. Sometimes she decides to be useful and helps him out to make things go a little faster. Like usual, Lucia is laying on the couch, sleeping like a cat. Andy calls out to her and she wakes up. He asks her why he is the only one doing all the work. Lucia gives the best comeback I have ever seen. She tells him that he must be imagining things. I will definitely start using this. She makes Andy mad with her antics, but like he said before, she does make herself useful at times. From the comfort of her couch, the girl gives some precise instructions to adjust the ingredients in the potion for a successful result. This is when you realize that she really is a genius. Her intuition about potion making is really precise, and sometimes she can get to the heart of the problem at a single glance. Andy does as she had instructed him, and thinks that he is only doing this because he needs money. But truth be told, the decision to accept her offer to work together has really been the best in his condition. Andy makes the first mixture with precise measurements and then extracts a dropper from it. Then he puts a couple drops of the red mixture into one he has already prepared. The mixture then turns purple with a magical concoction feel to its texture. When the red mixture reacts with the one from before, a notification pops up telling Andy that he has made a physical reinforcement potion, and it's at intermediary level. He gets up in his excitement with a victorious laughter, and Lucia takes her head from the pillow to ask if he failed again. Andy looks back at her with a weird dead eyes and happy face, telling her that the potion was a success. Another notification pops up, telling him that he has acquired a new talent. The new talent allows him to make buff potions at an ordinary level. Then his evolution trait pops up, telling him that he can evolve this talent with a 32% probability. Andy finds out that he can even evolve talents with his trait, which further means that he can evolve anything if the conditions are right. but the possibility is only at 32%, which is even lower than when he used evolution on the vampire. He puts the notification away for now as Lucia exclaims that the potion has no side effects. She then tells him that this potion can be used daily and they should go make a request to the potion examination committee right away. Andy tells her that she should do this part since he practically did the whole work until now. All the laziness drains from Lucia as she jumps in celebration, telling him that she will be busy with the midterm exams which are due tomorrow, but since he had made it easy for her, she will happily take care of it for him. Back at the secret lab, there is a notification over Angela's head. It shows that the time remaining until her evolution is complete is 14 days, 21 hours and 33 minutes. Angela is awake and can feel everything that has been happening to her. However, as ominous red and black aura exudes from her body, she can tell that it's not only pain and burning that she has been feeling, there is something more to it as well. An announcement is made on a speeding train which tells its passengers that when they reach the midterm evaluation venue, they should remain together so that the examiners can tell them how the exam will go. Andy is among one of the passengers. He had decided to take this exam. As he reads a book, he wonders about Lucia, whom he thinks will pass the first phase of the examination with no hitch. The final phase is at the magic tower. Nothing more is said about this. Andy has been training a lot during this time and his swordsmanship and necromancy has increased a lot. He just needs enough to pass the exams, and nothing more. Angela's evolution is about to finish as well, so he could check on her as well after the exams. He can give a good excuse to go back to the lab to be allowed inside when he's back. Opposite of him, Diane and her friend are sitting. The friend nudges her and asks her what she thinks the midterms will be about this time around. It would seem that the student groups for the exams will be chosen at random, which means that if you get paired with good people, they can basically carry you to the win. Diane replies that to her, it does not matter who she gets paired with. She will do her best anyway. However, the girl whispers to her that it's not as simple as she makes it out to be. She then bravely points to Andy and asks her what she would do if she gets paired with him. Diane looks at Andy, who is busy putting his book back in his bag, and our boy has started to look good after all his physical training. When Diane looks at him, she flinches in surprise and swallows hard. Sometimes I get the feeling everyone hates our hero for no reason. I mean, he couldn't possibly be that bad. Anyway, the announcer tells the students that they will reach Auckland training station in 1 minute. When the train reaches the station, a senior position holder orders the students to get off. It is now time for everyone to depart, which they do in an orderly fashion. They are given the rules for this examination that the third year's midterm exams will be a group task with randomly chosen members. The senior position holder further tells them that each group will have 3 students from the warrior department, 1 from the magic department, and every group would be accompanied by a supervisor. After that, the group will have until Monday to complete their appointed task. The senior position holder wishes them luck and announces the start of the group selection. The groups are paired together, and with the look on Andy's face, it doesn't look like he got a good draw. You see, there are many other villains besides Andy and Charon in this academy, and as it turns out, he managed to got 2 of them in his group. The first one is a playable character who fought the cult, a fanatic named Hazar Gapri. And the other one is Vivian the Lunatic, the academy's undiscriminating murderer. My question is, why the hell do they have murderers walking around, and why is it public knowledge? We see the sheet Andy has been given. He is a part of the 9th group and there are 4 members alongside him, with 1 being a supervisor. While Andy wonders about the luck he got as a trashy character, someone calls out to him from the back. It's a proper-looking guy who introduces himself as Christopher. He is in Andy's group. They exchange greetings, and just right after, he begins talking to him in a demeaning tone. Andy's toned body tells Christopher that he trains like a warrior, even though he is supposed to be a magician. He says that he is disgusted by him, and warns him to not get in his way. Hazar comes to greet everyone by telling them his name, and with a cheerful tone, he tells Christopher that having an unfriendly warrior in the group is not ideal. On the other hand, Vivian introduces herself in an uncaring and cold manner by just saying her full name and nothing else. Christopher responds aggressively like a yakuza, asking Hazar who exactly he is talking about when he says warriors should not be unfriendly. Their bickering continues and the yakuza asks why Hazar is defending a mage who is copying the warrior style. Hazar replies that unlike yakuza guy, he is fine with Andy since everyone should get some physical exercise. Meanwhile, Andy just wants these fucking idiots to stop fighting, because they're not the only problem with this group. Just next to them, we see a caped woman chewing on something, and she's none other than their supervisor. The woman looks like some half-naked barbarian, who loudly spits out the jerky she was chewing on while holding the rest like a cigarette. What the fuck? I don't know whether to laugh at her or be intimidated by her cigarette. At least she has nice golden eyes like her hair. The senior position holder announces that once all the groups have gathered together, they should go get their assignments for this test. He then adds a mandatory line by telling the students to be careful and come back alive. However, when you have a group like this, you can bet that something wild is bound to happen. Coming back alive might not be so easy for our hero. They got their assignment and are now on the train headed for their destination. The half-naked barbarian introduces herself to them as Ivy Claire. I just can't get over her jerky chewing thing. Anyways, she shows them a sheet on which their assignment is written. It's a request to investigate a village in Baron Baloric's territory. There's a rumor that the landlord of the village of Thrym has been murdered. An investigator was sent 2 weeks ago and there has been no contact since then. The request is sent out to the mercenary guild to investigate this matter. The half-naked barbarian chews on a piece and asks if the group has any questions. While the assignment must be important and everything, Andy is busy wondering about how she is more aggressive than what he saw in the game. According to the lore, Ivy Claire is known for becoming the youngest Aura Master in the near future, but there is nothing else given about her character. Makoto remembers his interactions with her when he played the game. He knows that her skill is the real deal, but the problem will be her personality. She takes a jab at Andy and calls him Seaweed Head, and that she knows that he has tried playing a knight recently. With a smirk she taunts him, and even pulls out the good old, "Can you even lift, bro?" Andy is calm against her taunts though. He says that he doesn't need to listen to someone who has to chew on jerky just to keep her cool. Half-naked barbarian replies that she is not allowed to smoke in here, and she will gladly chew on Andy if he wants. She smokes and is one of the warriors, who are supposed to have unnatural amounts of stamina. I feel like something isn't adding up. They arrive at their destination, and I guess they forgot the Yakuza guy in the train or something, because only 4 people are seen entering the castle. Inside, they meet up with the Baron, who welcomes them like a rich and sick-of-life person. The Baron tells them that it is a shame that this incident has happened, and he will now explain the details to this situation. We find out that the landlord of Thrym Village is the Baron's nephew who was a baronet without a family. The Baron tells them everything he knows and the half-naked barbarian thanks him for the information. The butler comes in and respectfully interrupts this meeting. He leans down and says something about the young master. While the butler tells him why he interrupted this meeting, Andy is seen looking at this interaction and something does not sit right with him. But for now, he chooses to stay quiet. The Baron hears everything the butler had to say and strokes his beard in thought. He then gets up from his chair, telling them he must be the first one to excuse himself as something has come up that requires his urgent attention. He wishes them luck and goes away. The butler respectfully bows and tells the group that the young master is unwell and that they do not mean to be rude to them. Half-naked barbarian stands up to leave as well. She tells him that it is fine with them since they had gotten all the information they came here to get, and they will be leaving soon. The butler gives them a suspicious look as they're leaving, and our boy Andy doesn't fail to notice this either. The meeting ends, and the group walks out of the castle, where the Yakuza was waiting while watching over their gear while they were gone. The half-naked barbarian thinks out loud while checking her sword's blade. She says that the Baron seemed unusually calm even though his nephew is missing, which just doesn't sit right in her gut. She puts the sword back in its sheath and asks Andy if this suspicious behavior was the reason he asked the group to depart immediately. Andy says yes and that he noticed a lot of things that were out of place in there. While she stands up and adjusts the sword on whatever belt she's wearing for fashion purposes, Andy tells her that the story about the missing investigator seems fabricated. He adds that another odd thing he noticed was that they only sent out 1 investigator even though a whole month had passed. What Andy thought to be the most suspicious was the butler's attitude. He had told them that they should stay, because if they left now, it would be nightfall when they'd reach the village. He had told them to rest for the day and go out tomorrow, upon which the half-naked barbarian had said that they would be fine even if they leave now. The job comes first after all. Andy had noticed the change in expression of the butler, and tells the supervisor that he looked as if some plan of his had failed after they had refused to stay. And above all, they both looked extremely anxious. They had minor trembling about them, their breathing and behavior. Everything down to the slightest gesture was a clear giveaway that they were hiding something. While they had talked, everything was put into the carriage for them and the half-naked barbarian tells them to get in. The carriage is speeding on the road. It seems they would make time with how fast they're going. Yakuza guy asks if they should find a place to find first when they arrive, at which the half-naked barbarian replies that the investigation takes priority. She then begins to explain that they should begin their investigation by checking out the landlord's castle first. But instead of listening to her, Andy is thinking how this whole assignment is suspicious and that the only way to proceed is to check it out directly. As they travel, something in Andy changes which he immediately notices. He grabs at his chest as the feeling gets recognized. His mana is being restless. Moreover, the restlessness keeps increasing as they get closer to the village. Andy had just begun to wonder what might be the problem, when all of them notice the violent shaking the carriage is going through. Hazard knocks on the panel window that opens to the rider to ask what was going on, but the Yakuza guy pushes him aside and opens the panel to yell at him instead. As we find out, the rider, as well as the horses, have fallen into some kind of madness. The carriage is speeding and unstable, but neither the horses nor the rider is making any effort to slow down. Inside, the Yakuza guy tells everyone that something is wrong with the rider. The half-naked barbarian sees this as well, and before long, she kicks the door, which gives in and is sent flying on the road. She looks out and tells everyone that it's too late to take evasive measures, and everyone inside needs to brace for impact because they're going to crash into the gate. We see everyone holding on to something for the imminent impact, and we even get a cameo from half-naked barbarian's ass in this panel. The carriage, along with the horses, crash into the gate and are sent tumbling forward into the village square. The carriage is effectively destroyed, and the rider has flown ahead and crashed among the village folk, who, surprisingly, don't pay him much heed and instead continue dancing on the streets like some crazy people. The rider lets out broken gasps among the dancing folk, and their expressions give us the same feeling as what the rider had when he was operating the carriage. It feels as if everyone here is possessed. The group helps each other to get out of the fallen over carriage and look around. A horse has been crushed by the carriage, but its madness is causing it to move anyway. Everyone stands there watching and processing what is it that they have come upon, and the villagers are just drooling and dancing in the weirdest of ways. Yakuza guy yells at Andy by calling him Big Head. He asks what might be wrong with the villagers, as he should know things like these since he is a mage. We see that Andy is still feeling his restless mana, and it seems to have gotten intense. This much is enough for him to confirm something. It is more than just a mana anomaly. The only reason his mana would react this way is because the village square, or rather the whole village, is under the effects of black magic. But what does that mean for our heroes? And what could possibly be behind such a large-scale spell on some random village? Even more importantly, how does this all ties down to the Baron, who seemed awfully nervous during their whole meeting? They took a carriage to the village, and after crashing into the village gate, Andy discovered that the whole village was under the effects of black magic. A frenzied villager is tackled to the ground by Vivian, and the party begins to examine him as he struggles under her. Vivian notices that the strength she is experiencing from the kid is not normal. Hazard checks out his feet and notes that the soles are really worn out since he was dancing for the whole day. Yakuza guy had thought it was a curse that was causing the villagers to dance, and he's pretty convinced that he's right. Hazard looks back at him and says that there must be a connection between the job and the curse. Yakuza guy responds with an observation. He says that the landlord has been gone for a month, and if they had been dancing for a whole month, the villagers would have died from exhaustion a long time ago. And he pitches in by saying that someone must be taking care of the villagers during this time, just to keep them alive. And as you can guess, the Yakuza doesn't seem to like hearing his opinion. The half-naked barbarian runs her fingers in her frontal hair and says that they must have been dragged into something problematic. Andy analyzes his situation as well. He knows that Andreas doesn't die in this part of the game. He then accesses the current situation and thinks that had they spent the night at the castle like the butler had suggested, the Baron would have had enough time to cover all of this up. The situation had changed for him since they had come to this village on the same day. The situation here is dangerous for them because the mana he felt before is about the same level as that of Charon. But what surprises Andy is the fact that the mana was used on such a large scale, which is a little confusing. But then, it occurs to him that the black mage might have an artifact. Yakuza guy notices Andy's worrisome face and asks him what might be wrong. He tells him that they don't have many clues right now to this situation and that they should search the landlord's residence first. Information collection is always the first step after all. They reach a large house where bodies are left burning at the front gate. The half-naked barbarian kicks in the door to the house and they enter. The party looks around and finds a lot of dead bodies littering the main hall. As they're making their way further in, Yakuza guy notices something among the bodies and tells the rest of the party that some of these bodies have uniforms which belong to the Empire's investigation team. He bends down to check on the body and notes that they have been dead for a long time. Andy says that perhaps they won't be able to solve this mystery by themselves, which earns him a questioning look from the half-naked barbarian. Andy then tells the party that with what they've seen so far, he is sure that this is the work of a black mage. The half-naked barbarian asks him how can he be sure. He explains that to him. It looks like someone is amplifying the emotions of the people in the village and exchanging them for magical power. Half-naked barbarian chimes in by saying that the driving force for black magic is emotions indeed. She concludes that the landlord must have been killed for this end, and Andy adds that perhaps he must have been obstructing them. The Yakuza guy, with a look that says that he wants to run away as far as possible, asks if the burning bodies outside are part of some black magic ritual. Andy tells him that that can indeed be the case, but he is not sure. As she tells the party to start searching the premises, the half-naked barbarian says that the truth will be revealed only after they capture the criminals. The party starts exploring and looking around the house for clues and any kind of information that they can find. They eventually gather at one spot and turn in their findings, which is nothing. Not even the landlord's corpse was found. While the party was talking, Vivian was looking through the window and noticed something. She tells the party to look as well. When they do, they see that a bunch of people had entered the front yard and were in the process of coming inside. Looking at this, Andy assumes that the black mage must be making his move. The villagers shamble one after the other as the Yakuza guy asks what they should do. It almost feels as if they were waiting for the party to enter the building so they can make their move. Hazar calls the half-naked barbarian as Supervisor Ivy, asking her what they should do. Not gonna lie, I had completely forgotten her name, but I think I'll stick to calling her a half-naked barbarian. Anyway, she orders them to stop the search for now and exit the building, while also ordering Hazar to find a way out. The boy heeds the command, and immediately starts running to scout ahead. However, he doesn't even reach the stairs when he finds out that the frenzied villagers have already made their way to the second floor. He immediately notifies the party as the villagers reach out for him. The Yakuza guy immediately takes action by running for Hazar to help him. He tackles him free and begins fighting them off and tells Hazar to go protect our boy Andy in the back. As he's barking out his command, the villagers start bloating and deforming. It was already too late when the Yakuza guy noticed, and the villagers started exploding right in his face. Some of the blood even managed to splatter all the way on Andy in the back. The Yakuza guy flies back by his feet, along with body parts that formerly belonged to the villagers. The horror of this scene starts triggering something in Makoto. He looks at the Yakuza guy, and his mind takes him back to the battlefield where the Yakuza guy is now a soldier and Andy is calling out to him. His vision turns foggy and he drops to his knees, panting as he suffers through a panic attack. He sees the half-naked barbarian yelling something at him, asking him why he was on the floor. She grabs Andy and puts him on her shoulders, telling Vivian to go for the window. As she breaks open the window to make a way for her and the party, they all jump from the second story, carrying their teammates on their backs and start running for it. This much is enough time for Andy to come back. He had gotten a flashback from his last mission, the timing of which is pretty annoying for him. He extends his hand and casts a grease spell to make them slip, and then casts earth shields for large rocks to come out of the earth, so he can further slow the speed of their pursuers. The half-naked barbarian immediately asks him if he thinks he is alone or something, because he should not use his mana so recklessly. Instead, he should be using it to track the location of the black mage. As we get an upskirt shot of the half-naked barbarian with Andy on her back, he says that he is pretty sure he can do it as he is now. The black mage is using his mana recklessly, and if Andy is smart with his casting, he can easily find his location. He casts the mana detect spell and his mind begins to see all the black mage's mana wherever it is. His mind's eye takes him all over the village, all the way to the source of where all this mana is being originated from. Andy's eyes flash open at the end of his cast. He immediately yells out the location and the half-naked barbarian immediately takes a sharp left, commending Andy for his work. The other two were a few steps behind, and since the half-naked barbarian had started to dash faster, they were kinda left behind. She doesn't give them any heed and keeps sprinting. This is when we see a robed figure noticing and scoffing at our heroes from the comfort of his window, and in the next moment, the half-naked barbarian kicks the door in, breaking it off from its hinges. She stands over it, looking around and commenting that they might be in the right place and this could be where the black mage is hiding. Andy is about to enter when a pink barrier appears in the doorway to block his path. It seems that the masked figure had managed to prepare the trap for them just in the nick of time, and they had carelessly walked right into it. While the half-naked barbarian is examining the barrier, a bloodied person rises from behind. She hears a voice calling her out as his sister. She looks behind, and sees a bandaged-up person, telling her that it hurts. The half-naked barbarian's blood turns cold as she realizes who this person is. Outside, Andy tries to interact with the barrier and it zaps him, making him understand that this level of spell is beyond his power. A menacing voice forces itself into his head, telling him how pitiful all this is. The voice echoes and the sound of it gives Andy the jeepers creepers. It then says that they have come here just like a moth would to a flame. A sinister-looking purple portal opens up overhead, and its aura encompasses the whole of the village and its surroundings. The voice continues, ever more sinister. It says that there is no rush. Everything was ordained by God. Kneel in the name of Sloth. Andy seems to recognize this name, and it makes him freeze on the spot. He asks himself why would that name appear here in this place. We then get some context as to the basic main story of the game. As you already know, the name of the game is Great Sin, and starting from Sloth, the 7 deadly sins were separated from the Codex Apocalypse, which was their main body. And by collecting all of the sins, you can summon the final boss of the game. The frenzied villagers have reached him by the time he finishes his thought about the game. These items are the most important ones for the main story. He dodges just in time when the villagers are about to grab him. Meanwhile, Andy wonders why would Sloth be mentioned in this countryside area which isn't even part of the main story. He dodges another attempt to grab him and says to himself that he might be out of his league here, and he needs to join up with the others for now. Andy slides under the villagers and books it in the opposite direction. We're then taken to where the others are and we see the villagers being cut in half, slashed apart left, right, and center by Vivian. She's covered in blood and is in a blood rage it seems. She's pulling out a reaper and telling everyone to die. Andy catches up to them and asks Hazar, who is just a bystander at this point, completely lost on Vivian's behavior. Hazar exclaims his concern for Andy and tells him that it's the first time he is seeing her like that. Andy does not believe him though. He had his trust issues with Hazar, and those were confirmed just now. But he isn't worried about it too much. He has a plan for just this type of situation. He tells Hazar that the half-naked barbarian got trapped inside a barrier. Hazar asks what they should do about it, and we start hearing voice of Sloth, echoing like usual, telling them that they were pitiful. Then it asks them if they realize that they're killing innocent villagers. Hazar hears this voice this time as well, and Andy tells him that it must be the black mage speaking to them. He then tells him that the black mage must be near where the half-naked barbarian is. Hazar puts on a worried face and tells him that she must be in danger and that he's going over to her to help her out. Andy knows all too well what he's up to, since he played right into his hands, but him running away is still better than getting betrayed. Because now, he can focus on actual problems like Vivian. He analyzes the situation and finds out that the black magic might be the factor that's driving her insane. He needs not to make a wrong move, otherwise he'll get dragged into that mess as well. As she disposes of villagers to her front, she gets attacked by some from her back. Andy sees this and he can judge that she might not be able to avoid this situation. She surprises him by not only avoiding the attack but counterattacked by skewering 3 villagers onto her blade. Andy watches this in awe as she continues her slaughter. A hooded figure sits on one of the roofs of a building and says what he plans to do, now that the only one who is uninjured has escaped. Andy tells him that he does not care about him, as he didn't expect anything from him to begin with. We see that it's the masked black mage, and he's a bit shaken by Andy's calmness. This causes him to smirk and he says that he knew the boss would appear right about now. The black mage stands up and starts mocking our hero, saying that he does not care how he got this much confidence. He then lifts a hand up, telling Andy that he recognizes his bravery, and he will give him a test, of sorts, as commendation. Just as he says that, Andy's surroundings change in the blink of an eye and he finds himself floating in a weird space. He feels something odd, and when he looks at his hands, he sees that they are disintegrating. He looks at himself and finds that his whole body is breaking into tiny pieces. He then wakes up to a familiar, yet also unfamiliar hands wearing combat gloves. A bloodied Makoto looks at himself and questions if he was dreaming all of that. Then, a blast causes him to take cover and grab his gun. He comes out to look around and wonders where his squad could be. He makes a run for it to regroup with them but skids to a halt when he sees something. We see a half-blown-up soldier stumbling over a hill. The soldier calls out his name and tells him to run. Makoto knows him, it's someone named Xiaowei. As he falls, Makoto runs for him to catch him. We see that his arm is gone, so is the right side of his head. Makoto tries to wake him up, but it's already too late. He curses out in frustration and helplessness and keeps trying to wake his friend up. But the scene suddenly changes and Xiaowei begins to turn into a green-haired man. Makoto begins to turn into Andrea's and Xiaowei turns into Andrea's father. His father had given him the family ring, telling him that even though their house has fallen, he will still be recognized as a lord. He does not need to be burdened by his father anymore. His father had wished him happiness on his deathbed, alongside his sister Amy. Andy claws at a surface which surprises the black mage when he sees the spell he casted on Andy being broken through from the inside. Andy's hands breaks free from the inside and this causes the entire dome to collapse and break into pieces. Out comes a badass-looking Andy as pieces of the dome fall around him. The black mage is stunned by this and asks him how he had escaped from his curse of sloth. Andy doesn't respond as he is too busy looking at a notification that has popped up right in front of his face. I bet it's too difficult to read from this distance. The notification reads that Makoto has completely synchronized with Andrea's and has gained a new talent by the name of Makoto's exceptional combat. Andy tells the black mage that his curse is nothing but a game that stimulates the traumas one has had. He mocks the black mage by saying that the curse he casted was nothing special and that his skill is lacking. The black mage prepares a blade of darkness and launches it at Andy, who is surprisingly swift to dodge it. He mocks him by asking what the black mage plans on doing now. There's no way his spells can hit him, especially now that he has his special forces training integrated to his character. This pisses him off even more and he begins to attack Andy with volley after volley of black spears which he keeps dodging and dodging. Andy analyzes the black mage's strength and figures out that he is not that strong, but he will have to use his necromancy to beat him. There is no other way. He skids to a halt and looks around to see if there is anyone that might be watching, but the coast seems to be clear. The black mage hops down from his perch and asks him who the fuck he is. Andy has a serious look on his face as he says that he is going to show him exactly what he is all about. He casts a summoning spell and the black mage immediately recognizes what the spell is. A notification pops up, telling Andy that there are 23 corpses nearby, but his skill level will only allow him to reanimate 9. As Andy walks through the corpses, their flesh begins to disintegrate until he has raised 9 skeletons in front of the black mage. He exclaims, asking Andy if the congregation already knew. Andy had his suspicions, but this confirms them about the black magic congregation. Obviously, the black mage has misunderstood, but Andy can use this to his advantage by shaking him off. With a confident look, Andy tells the black mage that the congregation has entrusted him to recover the Page of Sloth. The black mage prepares more black spears and taunts him about his skeletons, saying that he cannot accomplish the task he claims to have been entrusted with. The skeletons run at him to attack and he releases his black spears at them, mocking Andy about him matching the power of sloth. However, the skeletons get instantly destroyed one after the other, and the rain of spears start heading for Andy next. Andy casts the earth shield spell to block the attack, but the black mage prepares an even bigger spear in response, yelling at Andy to stop playing around. While behind the earth shield, Andy summons Nickel just as the black mage releases his spear, taunting Andy again about him only summoning weak creatures against him. On the other side of the earth shield, Nickel has been summoned and he picks up a random sword from the ground and proceeds to cut the spear with his sword. The black mage can only watch on as Nickel cuts his spears one after the other. Of course, he's surprised how a mere skeleton can cut his dark spears. So, he brings out an object and begins to channel it. Andy immediately notices this, as humongous hands start to sprout from the ground to attack Nickel. The object expands into a tower of plates, and Andy immediately knows what it is. The Page of Sloth. The black mage yells out in confidence, saying that someone like Andy has made him use his precious sloth power. He lifts his hand towards the sky and continues by saying that Andy will pay with his life for disrupting his plans. Meanwhile, Nickel is fighting the large hands and Andy is running around dodging and staying out of the way of Nickel. He accesses the situation and realizes that he can react with his training if the attacks retain their current speed. He looks at Nickel, seeing his condition and saying to himself that he knows Nickel can endure a lot more than just this much. The black mage is looking at all of this, and in his frustration, he tells Andy to die quietly. Andy notices that the attacks have gotten faster, which not only means he can't control his strength all that well, but it also means that he hasn't mastered the power of sloth just yet. As Andy dodges an attack, he orders Nickel to go for his blind spot and strike him. Multiple attacks land where Nickel was, and when the black mage lifts those hands to check out the aftermath, he sees that Andy is still alive. A panting Andy calls him a bastard and tells him that the skeleton he destroyed was a special one he just got his hands on. At this, the black mage starts to laugh and tells Andy not to worry, as he will be sending him to the same place where that skeleton is now. The large hands rush for Andy, but this was all according to his plan. Nickel gets summoned behind the black mage, and just like that, the mage is cut clean in half. The purple dome around the village starts to dissipate. Now that the black mage is two black mages, Andy can finally see who it was. It's none other than the Baron's butler. This also means that the Baron is definitely somehow involved in this matter. Andy picks up the sloth cube and reads its stats. The official name of the item is Apocalypse Codex, 7th chapter Diligent Sloth. This is such a precious item that Andy can't really walk around holding it in hand. So, when Nickel approaches him from behind, Andy gets the idea to hand him the codex to take care of it at all times. He then sends Nickel in the summoning storage. He'll think about what to do with it later, given the current situation. Andy is left alone now with Vivian still under the effects of the curse. He wonders why the curse hasn't gone away even though the caster is now dead. Inside, Vivian continues to slaughter villager after villager while Andy is out there wondering what he should do. It's fine for him if the victim doesn't manage to come out, but then he will have to explain why he was the only one left alive when he'd return. He touches the curse barrier while thinking how this one seems different than the one he was in. And to his surprise, his fingers actually go in and he quickly gets sucked into the curse. What is he going to see in Vivian's memories? Will he be able to help her get rid of the curse and return to normal? Or will she simply turn out to be a mindless killer who's beyond redemption? Stay tuned to find out in the next episode. Until next time.